Hey, welcome to Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk. My name is Robert Lamb.
And I'm Christian Sager.
And I'm Joe McCormick, and we're the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works family. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, but it is Trailer Talk, where we come on here on Facebook Live and talk about some movies related to something we discussed in a recent episode. Now, last week, you guys had what sounds like a really awesome episode about sharks with a special guest, right?
That's right. We called it the Sharks of Summer because we're tying it into it's summertime. Not everyone. A lot of people are going to the beach.
Boys of Summer, but with sharks instead.
Exactly. That was what was in my head the whole time. But people are going to the beach, and if you're not going to the beach, then you're maybe thinking about watching a shark movie, or you're watching Shark Week. We actually published it during Discovery's Shark Week. But our episode in particular was focusing more on sharks, not as death machines, but as life machines, talking about their reproduction strategies, as well as the importance of shark conservation. And our guest on that episode was marine biologist Mara J. Hart.
Right, yeah, so we focused mainly on shark reproduction. The beginning of the episode was us talking about the general basics of shark reproduction, which are absolutely insane. And we will drop a couple of nuggets of information throughout this trailer talk as we look at some bizarre shark movies. Although I don't think there's that many shark movies where sharks give birth.
That's the thing.
No.
Like
3D, Jaws 3D is the only one I can think of.
So the three-stage life of the shark, as explained by Hooper in Jaws, is swim, eat, and make little sharks. Now, you see the first two. You see, in fact, some movies really pad it out with the first one, but you never get to see the third.
This guy right here.
And it is difficult to see the third. That's one of the things we talked about in the episode. But really the crazy thing about it is we didn't talk. I don't think we talked about shark feeding much at all, except as it factors into reproduction.
Yeah.
We talked about all these crazy reproductive strategies, and all of it is just wonderful and weird, and you don't see any of it in your monster movies.
Yeah, so we'll give you a little bit of information, but I recommend that you go listen to the episode if you really want to dive deep into the bizarre sex life of sharks. And we do a good 40-minute interview with Mara, and she is one of the coolest, most down-to-earth marine biologists. And we've talked to her 3 times in the past. No, 2 times in the past. This was our 3rd time with her. But it's just a lot of fun, and she is able to paint a great picture of what's going on with sharks in this whole thing.
Yeah, she's very passionate about marine biology and, of course, conservation efforts.
Is that Michael Phelps in the shark outfit?
That's right. We do talk a little
That's what
bit
he was
about that.
forced to do after he lost to that great white last week.
Wow. I'm hypnotized. But also we should say, hey, if you want to go check out the podcast, don't just download that episode, hit subscribe so we keep coming at you, and you always get to hear what we talk about next. Now, we are going to talk about some really bad, funny shark movies today. And I got to say, I'm a sucker for bad shark movies. I love them. But we should also give a little warning at the beginning, because I think it's pretty much undeniably true that anti-shark media has had harmful ecological consequences.
This is something we talk about in the episode with Mara, yeah.
And so we in no way want to endorse the idea that sharks need to be hunted and destroyed or feared. Humans are not a primary prey animal of sharks. You generally don't need to worry about sharks. They're generally not a threat to humans. And this is just the anti-shark mentality is not something we ever want to promote. At the same time, I can't deny Jaws is one of my favorite movies, and bad shark movies are some of the best bad movies out there.
I tell you, one of the points that comes up in the episode is that certainly there's this whole sharks are scary, sharks are dangerous, sharks are monsters mentality, but there's also this idea that sharks are tough. And yeah, an individual adult shark is a tough customer, but as we discussed in the episode, they are fragile. They are in a fragile place in our ecosystem. Just because you're an apex predator, that doesn't mean you're bulletproof. That's a delicate position to be in. Especially in an environment that is at risk.
That is another thing that you see in Jaws. The shark is a Terminator. You just keep putting bullets and stab wounds and stuff into it, and it never gets harmed. Yeah, these are biological creatures that can be harmed.
Yeah. What's fascinating is how many shark movies there are. You would think Jaws and Deep Blue Sea and maybe a couple others. You would be wrong. There are 60 killer shark movies, and we had to really whittle them down for this episode.
This wasn't like with the Ticks episode where there's one Ticks movie.
Arguably 2.
Like 1.5.
Yeah. There are about 3,000 shark movies. I've seen less than half of them. Most of those were in college. But,
it's a life well spent.
Yeah.
It's going to say that on your tombstone.
Right.
Saw less than half of the shark movies.
I mean, woe to anyone who's seen more than that. I mean, because a lot of them, a lot of them are so bad that they don't even bear mention.
Hey,
right.
And while we're going
yeah.
through this, actually, I would like to throw to the audience, because there's so many of them, what's your favorite one? And you're not allowed to say any of the Jaws movies.
Oh, wait a minute.
Although,
wait a minute.
You think it's well, we're just going to get Jaws over and over again, right?
Right. So maybe you can challenge our opinion here. My statement would be there's one legitimately good shark movie ever made, and that's Jaws, and it's one of my favorite movies. But a lot of what's great about it is not even the shark. It's Robert Shaw, it's Quint. It's written like a play. It has good character drama. It's funny. It's fun. It's an adventure. And after that, there's just nothing. Like, everything is either bad, or if it's good, it's ironically good.
I grew up watching Jaws 3D and love it, but I recognize that it's a bad movie. And then another one of my, close to my heart shark movies is actually going to be talked about in this episode.
Okay.
So I want to save it. I'm just going to say, get ready for some Thomas Jane and LL Cool J action.
I guess we should get into it.
Yeah.
But we should just remind you also, if you want to leave a comment, we've got our friend Nathan here. He will be writing down some comments for us so we can answer in real time.
And it's Nathan's birthday, so say happy birthday to Nathan so he can see it on the internet.
All right, well, what's our first movie here? We're going to go pre-Jaws, right?
Right. I want to talk about Burt Reynolds. Because
Who doesn't?
before there was Jaws, there was Burt Reynolds. So this is a movie called Shark! From 1969.
He looks so good in this,
Oh, yeah.
by the way. When I was watching the trailer, I was like, who is that tall drink of water? And then it said Burt Reynolds.
He's in deliverance mode here, where he's mustache free and just handsome as hell.
He's so good in this movie. He's mostly like yelling at people and hitting children in the face. This movie's awful, but in a complicated way that I want to explain. There's also a really shocking story about the production of this that I will get to in a minute. So the short version of the plot, Burt Reynolds plays this gun smuggler named Kane.
Okay.
And Kane gets stranded in a small port town in the Red Sea. I think it's supposed to be in Yemen, maybe.
Okay.
And he's trying to find a way to earn money for passage home, and he gets mixed up with a man and a woman who are doing these underwater diving missions. And at first he thinks that they're scientists.
So it's kind of like Wages of Fear, except with sharks.
Okay, sure. Yeah, okay, with sharks. At first he thinks they're scientists. Later it turns out they're sort of criminal treasure hunters.
Okay.
And he gets mixed up with
why
them.
would he care if he's a gun smuggler?
Yeah, right. And so he gets mixed up with them, and he's trying to retrieve a bunch of gold bars from a sunken ship, but the sunken ship is guarded by killer sharks.
Ooh. Okay.
Wait, guarded? Like they know the gold's there, and they're like,
I mean, it's,
you cannot have our gold?
There's no explicit magic in the movie, but the sharks pop out when you go down to the ship. So it's like in a video game where you go into a room and there is a creature that comes at you. It's as if they are there for the narrative purpose of defending the gold, which they are. And so it was shot in Mexico. It's based on a novel called His Bones Are Coral by Victor Canning. That's a good title.
That's
I like it.
And directed by Samuel Fuller. Do you guys know Sam Fuller?
No, name's familiar.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Not super well known these days, but he's got a lot of fans in the film community. He made some apparently very respected sort of hard neo-noir movies in the early 60s. Like
I thought that was going to go in a completely different direction.
No?
Hard neo.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, go ahead.
Anyway, yeah. So, have you ever heard of The Naked Kiss or Shock Corridor? He made these movies.
Okay.
And also in 1980, he directed The Big Red One, which was a war movie starring Lee Marvin and Mark Hamill.
Huh.
It's not
Mark
very
Hamill?
good. Yeah, it's not very
Really?
good. It's got this voiceover where it's like Mark Hamill or one of the other young characters just always saying something like, "We had just got out of training when the enemy dropped on us for 40," So it's not so great. Anyway, Sam Fuller, I want to share a quick story. In his autobiography, But Enough About Me, a memoir, Burt Reynolds tells this story about the making of the movie.
Okay.
He says, quote, I made a picture
Hello.
in Mexico with Samuel Fuller called Shark. It was a terrible film, and Sam was tough, but I loved him. Know what he did instead of saying action? He shot a gun. There I was with my arms around the gorgeous Mexican actress Sylvia Pinal, ready to do a tender love scene, and then all of a sudden, bam! Sam, I pleaded, can't you just say action? He puffed on his cigar and said, no.
And now he actually ended up turning Sam into a rug.
Yeah,
what he's
that could
laying
be.
on.
He's
Yeah.
on top of his directorial conquest.
Hey,
there.
I have an interesting story for you guys that you might not know. Did you know that our producer Ramsey actually was like within 5 feet of Burt Reynolds in the last like 2 weeks?
I saw
Yeah.
the photographic evidence of this. Yeah.
Yeah, he went down to like what was it, Cannonball Run?
Smoking the Bandit.
Smoking the Bandit.
They did the Bandit jump.
Yeah, he went
So
to
they
like
were recreating a scene from Smokey and the Bandit. Were y'all getting ready for a tender love scene?
It was.
and then Ramsey shot a gun in the air, and Burt Reynolds immediately started kissing him.
This movie, the Burt Reynolds-y scenes are so Burt Reynolds-y. He's just like bleeding this hilarious 60s machismo. It's like they were trying to invent the genre of Axe body spray commercial before that existed. There are lots of shots in the movie of children smoking cigars.
Nice.
And then also, as I said, of Burt Reynolds hitting children in the face. So originally, the movie was not called Shark.
Okay.
Where'd that title come from?
I assume
Was it
it
called
had
The
that
Bones of
awesome,
Our Coral?
Yeah, I assume it
No.
had the name of that awesome novel.
No, not His Bones Are Coral. It was called Kane, which is the main character's name.
Twinkle
Which-
Twinkle Killer Kane.
Why do you name a movie after the main character? That just,
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, it's worked.
There's lots of good
Shaft,
ones. Yeah.
Bullet,
Conan.
You know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jaws.
I'm there
That's
with
its name.
So the studio changed the name to Shark. Why did they do that? Well, here's the shocking part I mentioned earlier. So during the filming, there was a tragedy. A Mexican stuntman named Jose Marco was actually killed by a shark in a accident where safety measures failed, and he was killed. And according to some sources I've read, they got the death on film. But I was looking at this book called Coming to a Theater Near You, A History of Hollywood Reissues, or actually Coming Back to a Theater Near You by Brian Hannon. And he tells the story of how Fuller quit the movie in disgust after the producers tried to use this death for publicity. Like they said, a stuntman got killed. Let's run that in all the presses and get some attention churned up for the movie that's about to come out. So Fuller quit, and then after he quit, the studio recut the film and just apparently completely butchered it. The movie is bad. Some film historians think that there's a good movie inside there if it had been up to Fuller to make the editing choices. But then it was re-released a bunch of times under the title Man-Eater.
Oh, I like that. That's a better name.
But the whole thing is the movie is not really about a shark. I mean, the shark plays a role in the plot, and it's a major role, and it's one of the main obstacles the hero has to overcome, but it's not really about a shark.
Well, that's interesting because it comes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like a shark movie, a good shark movie has to be about the characters.
Right.
So it's really more in keeping with a film you can care about, that it's not just called Shark or Blue Death or whatever the the very shark-centric title is, because it would mean that, hey, this Kane guy is really what you're here for.
Right.
Andy fights a shark.
So I'm going to assume no sharks give birth in this movie.
No sharks. No, it doesn't happen.
But if they're all like hanging out in this one sunken ship, it seems feasible to me that it might be the kind of generational shark reproduction where they're laying eggs, and that's one of the 3 different kinds of shark births that we talk. Actually, there's 4 technically, but actually the actual laying of eggs, which most people assume sharks, fish, they must give birth just like all other fish, right? Not true, and we'll get into more of that later. But I'm going to guess that in Shark, they're just swimming around inside that galleon and laying eggs.
They're just swimming around outside of it and attacking people.
Okay.
I think they have no backstory. It's like these sharks are really underdeveloped characters.
Yeah, that's the comment thread that you see is that the sharks, who cares how they reproduce or what their place in the ecosystem is? It's just they're killing machines.
That's
Now,
what
I
made
imagine
Jaws 3D so good, is that they were three-dimensional characters.
This movie, if there were young sharks hatching from eggs, they would be smoking cigars and Burt Reynolds be hitting them in the face. Do we have a comment coming in here? Maybe it'll take just a minute. In the meantime, if you're just tuning in, we are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works family. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, but this is Trailer Talk, where we talk about movies related to the podcast. Last week we had an episode with these guys about sharks with special guest Mara Hart. And we have Sheldine asking on Facebook, as a South African, can you explain what Shark Week is?
All right. Shark Week is a long-running tradition on the Discovery Channel.
It's like at least
here in the United States.
25 years old?
Yeah, it's been going a while, yeah.
The
It's
company we
decades
work
long.
for here, How Stuff Works, used to be owned by Discovery, but that was years
We
ago.
don't talk about that anymore.
In its purest form, Shark Week is a week-long celebration of sharks and the science of sharks. However, given that TV is a business, we've seen the trend in recent years where things go more sensational and then end up
Playing
garnering
up the
criticism.
dangers.
Playing up the danger of sharks, and it just becomes...
There's been complaints from
there have been
academic
complaints,
researchers who've been interviewed for it that feel like their quotes were taken out of context.
Yeah.
So there's been, but also we talked with Mara about this in the episode. Mara was actually in one of the Shark Week episodes, I think in the 90s, she said. And she grew up watching it. She loved it. It's what got her interested in marine biology. So there is a good side to it. It's just in the last couple of years, it feels like it's gotten a little bit more sensationalist.
Well, I think it's just part of of our overall perceptions of sharks. I mean, I think you put it pretty much on the same shelf with some of our shark horror movies that we look at. Yeah. That this is what we want. We want to celebrate the monstrous aspect of these creatures. We want to. Even when we're learning about the science, so often the time we want to learn about the science of this apex predator, but there's this whole other side to it, to these creatures as well, that we just often overlook.
All right, well, it looks like we may have another comment coming in a minute, but before we do that, maybe we should at least say, hey, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, you should go check us out wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and download the most recent episodes. Download the episode they did about sharks with Mara Hart, but also hit the subscribe button so you always get what we do in the future.
These guys just came out with 2 brand new episodes this week. One of them was about not sharks, secrets. Could be about secret sharks. You never know. What was the other one about?
About the Lashan Buddha.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Buddha in the mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an interesting mix of psychology and neuroscience and Chinese history and religion.
AJ asks us, how do you prepare for a Sharknado?
Do you mean how do you prepare for a real one, or how do you prepare to watch the movie?
I can't answer this because I've never seen one or experienced one.
But the first one is fun in its own way.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is a little bit what we were getting to in the beginning. Shark movies have sort of gone off the rails. Like, there were already bad shark movies to enjoy, but then they embraced the badness and started making intentionally bad movies, and then just kept trying to up the zaniness. And we're in this stage now where I think we have been oversaturated with intentionally bad, zany shark movies, and I'm sick of them.
Yeah, we're well past the tipping point. Now, that being said, there are still some legitimately terrifying shark movies that come out. I mean, there are at least some attempts to create like a pure horror shark movie. But they're kind of lost in the mist of all these just grotesquely bad shark films with grotesquely bad CGI.
I'd love to be in a Sharknado. In fact, I'd love to play president in a Sharknado.
All right, well, I guess we should move on to the next thing. So the next thing was, we've got to talk about the Deep Jaws sequels, right?
Yes. Deep Blue Jaws sequels.
So the trailer I think we're going to be looking at here is going to be the trailer for Jaws the Revenge, right? But also, I know, Christian, you wanted to talk about Jaws 3D.
I love Jaws 3D. Yeah, it's so good. Did you know Jaws 3D was written by Richard Matheson?
Richard Matheson.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote I Am Legend.
Yep. Yeah, and Duel and like a ton of classic horror stories.
Hell House.
Yeah, exactly. He came in and he wrote that, and then it was apparently mangled after his original script. He wasn't very happy with the final result, but man, Jaws 3D is great. We talk about it in the episode. It's got Dennis Quaid in it. It's set at like basically SeaWorld.
Right.
Also, it doesn't feature a live shark birth, but it's implied that a live shark birth happens because they catch a shark and they think it's Jaws, and they bring it into SeaWorld and they have it in captivity, and they realize it's the baby, and it dies in captivity, and that makes Jaws even more angry, and it just rips apart all SeaWorld.
I think this plot line gets ripped off in another one of the shark movies we're going to talk about today, where there is a smaller baby shark, and then they think they've defeated it, but then the big mother shark comes out.
So that is one of the other like weird facts that we learned about sharks in this episode, is that it turns out that some sharks, including great whites, give live birth. So it depends on the species, but like I think essentially the reason why is so that the shark can grow to a certain size that it can defend itself, right?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
it's
I mean,
born.
it's because the ocean is a terrifying place to be an organism.
Yeah.
So once the shark has reached an appropriate size, it's kind of good to go.
Now, as with any movie featuring Dennis Quaid, you always have to play this game of imagine the same movie but with Randy Quaid cast in the same role.
Actually, so Dennis Quaid is supposed to be playing the older brother from the first Jaws movie, and then his younger brother shows up, and Randy Quaid should have played the younger brother.
Now,
And then that's a good segue into Jaws: The Revenge.
Right, Jaws: The Revenge follows the Brody family, that Martin Brody's family from the first movie, and it's about the kids. And I think it just ignores 3. It's like 3 never happened, and so it starts with one of the Brody sons being attacked by a shark in a boat and killed, and then Ellen Brody, the mother, flees to the Caribbean, and the shark chases her.
So I've heard this story that apparently the actress who played Ellen Brody was married to one of the producers or something like that, and that's why she was cast in 1, 2, and then brought back for 4.
I think she was married to a Universal Studio executive or something. I don't know if that was why she was cast, but this movie is legendary bad. It's one of those that's not just like a rare find. I mean, if somebody knows about bad movies, you probably know about Jaws: The Revenge. It's got Michael Caine in it. It's just wandering through his role. You can tell he probably didn't even read the whole script.
Wow.
It's got this magic shark that chases a family from New England to the Caribbean. And so I guess we're just supposed to accept that the shark wants revenge. But I found something interesting when I was reading about this today. Apparently, in the novelization of Jaws: The Revenge, which somebody actually wrote, they fixed this nonsensical plot by saying, there's a voodoo priest who has put a curse on the Brody family and is using the shark as a tool of revenge to chase them.
Okay.
Now there's a plot in this, right? Like Michael Caine's character has some sort of a scheme, like a scientific.
No,
Am
not
I
really.
thinking of a different one? Huh.
No.
I think he's a love interest for
See-
the mom, right?
Yeah.
My problem with
he just flies an airplane.
my problem with the Jaws films is I think I've seen the first one multiple times, complete, as a complete film. But the rest of the Jaws films I've kind of absorbed in bits and pieces on TBS and TNT as a child. So I really am not sure where one sequel begins and another one ends. It's just a kind of a collage of sequences in which worried people on boats look out at the sea.
And this is definitely the part that doesn't line up with all these Jaws movies, right? Because essentially a shark dies at the end of every single one of them, and yet then another shark shows back up
Right.
and taunts the
who
same
is it?
family.
Yeah.
Is it a shark in the shark's family?
What if the sharks all share consciousness? Like they're all one individual.
Like hive mind sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jaws could be like predicting some scientific breakthroughs. There's no evidence that that's the case.
Well, they would need Cormac McCarthy to write the novelization, because this reminds me of how he described the soul of the horse and all the pretty horses.
So Jaws: The Revenge is one of those movies where you can just tell the filmmakers were constantly thinking like, is anybody going to notice that? Nah, we'll move on.
What's going on in this scene? They just fed it
let's
like
see.
a bomb or something?
Yeah.
Mario gets eaten.
Yes, Mario Van Peebles gets eaten off the front of a boat. He kind of has to... It looks like they couldn't get the prop lined up right, so he kind of has to sit down into the shark's mouth to get eaten properly. They also released a version with an ending where even after you see Mario Van Peebles get like bitten in half and eaten, he pops up at the end and he's like, "I'm okay."
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
Do we have any comments, Nathan?
Can a great white live in river water?
Can a great white live in river water?
I would
That's
doubt
a good
it.
question.
I would doubt it. I don't know. I haven't done the research.
Well, I would agree with you that I doubt it. However, I mean, I have heard tales of some shark species that like make their way up rivers for certain distances. But yeah, I don't have any hard scientific data to share on that.
Could be a time thing. Could be that they could survive, some small length of time in fresh water. But yeah, that's something I guess we don't know the answer to.
What's next?
Oh,
we got another
right.
shark movie?
Well, I think maybe
We got like 5 other shark movies.
now it's time to look at Shark Attack 3 Megalodon.
Are you going all the way up to 2002 on this one?
Yeah, so fans of Shark Attack 3 out there, chime in the comments. I know we must have some Shark Attack 3 fans. This is one of the best bad movies ever made. It's up there with Jaws the Revenge and the most well-known bad shark movies. If you haven't seen it, it's worth your time, but it's a straight-to-video 2002 film that I have a copy of on VHS.
Whoa. Wait a minute. Is that John Barrowman?
Yes, John Barrowman is the main character in this
What?
movie. It's before he was really famous.
Yeah.
He's embarrassed about it now. I think people will like taunt him by playing clips from this movie.
Wow, I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah, and so this movie, it's a sequel to Shark Attack and Shark Attack 2, but it doesn't have anything to do with those movies. Directed by David Worth, who was a cinematographer who was the director of photography on Bloodsport, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Nice.
And so it's got John Barrowman. It's got somebody named Jenny McShane. She didn't do a whole lot of other stuff. And so, also Jenny McShane is in the first Shark Attack movie, but not playing the same character, playing an unrelated character.
So it's kind of an anthology series.
Right. It's more like it's a spiritual sequel. It's on theme.
All right.
But it's about a megalodon,
Whoa.
a giant extinct shark. We've talked about megalodons on the show before, but it attacks a beach resort in Mexico, or it's supposed to be Mexico. Actually, it's Bulgaria, where they shot the film. And you can tell they're trying to make it look like Mexico by putting Mexican flags and framed pictures of Vicente Fox everywhere. In fact, it contributes to this weird kind of fascist tone in the film, because all the Mexican sets have Mexican flags and Vicente Fox, and then the American characters inside their houses and offices all have framed pictures of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney hanging up over all the furniture.
Nice.
That's what houses were like in 2002. You don't remember?
I don't know. Maybe I in fact don't have a good memory of that time. It's kind of a blur. But I don't know. I never saw people who had framed photos of the president and the vice president. That's the real kicker. They got Cheney in there too. But yeah, anyway, let's see. One of the things that I really love about this movie, in addition to all that you can see, the amazing editing here, and the special effects, but the sharks in this movie make sounds.
Yeah.
So they will go to attack a person, and they'll go, home.
Do you have evidence that sharks don't make sounds when they eat people?
Oh, actually, okay. That's
we'll
a
have to
good
call
point.
Mara
I don't
up
know.
and ask her about this. I don't know.
Do sharks grunt and
Right.
do they go nom nom nom?
Yeah, I don't believe they do.
So
Well.
this is are there any baby megalodons in this?
Yeah, I think this is the movie where first there is a small shark that they defeat and they think they've won.
Okay.
But it's a little megalodon, and then there's a giant megalodon that they have to fight at the end.
Okay, but we don't know what kind of birth it was. We don't know if it was a live birth or eggs or maybe it was like a tiger shark and the baby megalodon was born inside the mother and swam around and ate all the other eggs.
I believe it was delivered by Burt Reynolds.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, there are just whole dimensions of shark biology that are never dealt with by these shows.
Or Burt Reynolds.
All right, well, let's go back in time a little bit. Again, we're Stuff to Blow Your Mind, Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. This is Trailer Talk. You can learn more about us at stufftoblowyourmind.com. Our next film is going to take us back to 1981, and this is The Last Shark, or You want to bust out the
the
full title?
L'ultimo squalo.
Yes. This is an Italian Jaws ripoff, and boy, is it a ripoff.
Yeah.
There was a riff track for this that came out a few years back. So some of you might have seen it there, or if you're intrigued, like that's one way to see it to perhaps lessen the pain. It is. It is. Would you say it's a good film? Would you say it's?
No, it's. It is a very, very bad, very extremely derivative Jaws ripoff. I mean, it is such a ripoff. Is
it worse than Jaws: The Revenge?
No, I don't know if it's a worse movie than Jaws: The Revenge, but it's so shamelessly a ripoff of Jaws. It's like beat for beat the same plot. They've got a local politician who wants to keep the beaches open. Mm-hmm. It's got an off-brand Quint character played by
Vic Morrow.
Morrow,
Yeah, they basically said let's just do that. Let's just have that character. We have Vic Morrow. He'll just play that character. Everybody loves Quint. It'll be great.
So it's got the hero finds the remains of a victim at the beginning. It's got amateur shark hunters who go out to hunt the shark, but they're in over their heads. There's a scene where the hero's child gets injured by the shark, and they go to the hospital where they have the confrontation that leads them into the third act where they have to go destroy the shark.
Who's there, Richard Dreyfuss?
He's not really in the movie from what I can tell.
But you do have James Franciscus from Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, he plays the main character in that, right? Brent.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's good. Mainly you remember like Vic Morrow stands out, and even he's kind of like a B shelf Quint in this particular movie.
Yeah, no offense to him, but you can't stand up to Robert Shaw.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things about this film is that despite the fact that it is just such a shameless rehash, it was directed by this guy Enzo G. Castellari. And he's actually kind of incredible in his own way, in an Italian B-movie director sort of way. I have to add that caveat. But he gave us the excellent post-Mad Max Escape from New York films, 1990, The Bronx Warriors, which I believe that one is an MST episode.
And that's different than The Warriors.
Right. Okay. And then The Warriors also influenced this whole genre. But then he also did this excellent B film titled Warriors of the Wasteland, which is also available via Riff Tracks. But that one's actually really fun. It has an excellent soundtrack by Claudio Simonetti of Goblin.
Hey!
Yeah, just a really phenomenal soundtrack in my opinion. And then you have George Eastman as the villain in it. But that's a different movie. It's far more fun than The Last Shark. That being said, the shark in this movie looks pretty good. And there's at least one scene where it just makes a boat explode coming straight up.
Like 20 feet out of the water. It just pops up as if dynamite was under it. And
probably was.
Yeah, and the shark keeps popping out of the water in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like there's a scene where the mayor character, basically the mayor of Amity, I kept expecting him to say, Amity, as you know, means friendship. He's this kind of weaselly politician guy. He goes out in a helicopter to kill the shark.
Oh, yeah.
And the shark pops up out of the water and it bites this thing and knocks him out of the helicopter, and he's hanging on the bottom of the helicopter, and that evil politician gets his comeuppance because the shark bites his legs off.
Well, one of the things about Jaws, of course, is that they supposedly weren't happy with the shark effect, and so they didn't film it as much, and that adds to the effect.
Right.
You don't see it as much, your imagination builds it up. Mm-hmm. This film felt pretty good about their shark effect.
Yeah,
they're get it out there. It's ready to go. Nothing wrong with this one.
They're like extended shots of the shark head just coming up out of the water and hanging out for a minute. Oh God, what else do we have? At the end, one of the things that's also kind of like Jaws is it ends with the shark eating the off-brand Quint.
Yes.
Like it pulls him down and eats him, but he's got a bomb strapped to him.
Oh, yes.
And the hero then detonates the bomb to blow up the shark at the end. But a little science fact. So the hero detonates the bomb inside the shark in the water, and to jump away from the blast, the hero jumps into the water.
Oh, bad move.
Which you should not do. If you ever need to detonate a bomb underwater, you want to be above the water, not in the water.
Yes. I actually did a How Stuff Works article on this years back about whether it's better to be above the water or in the water for an explosion. And yeah, if you're by a pool and someone throws a hand grenade, poolside and in the water,
get out of the pool.
Yeah, get out of the pool. That's because otherwise it's just going to really mess you up.
Yeah. Do we have any comments coming in, Nathan?
No.
Nope. All right. So, well, I guess we should remind you that we are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works family. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, but it is Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk, where we come on here on Facebook Live, talk about movies related to recent episodes. Last week, we did an episode about sharks. These guys did, actually. They spoke to a really awesome guest, Mara Hart. Mm-hmm. And now we're talking about some of our favorite shark movies, with the caveat that we know a lot of shark media has been destructive, has pushed anti-shark mentalities. We don't want to perpetuate that today any more than by talking about crime films. We would want to perpetuate crime, right?
What was happening in that clip? Was it a cat wearing a shark costume on a Roomba
Yeah.
chasing a duck?
It is.
Right.
Okay.
Has anybody made that movie yet, though? Like, where it's actually a Roomba shark that kills you?
This brings up an interesting point. Like, what ends up happening in all your Godzilla movies? You end up with, yes, you end up with other creatures for it to fight. You end up with like a robot version of the monster. Has there been surely there's been a Robo Shark versus shark?
Must have been. Yeah, I mean, I would assume one of those sci-fi
One
movies.
of those
robot.
CGI films has to have it.
Yeah.
Ramsey, find us a robot shark. Is it time to look at our next film?
Yes, one that I would argue is the last great shark film that has been. We're talking about Deep Blue Sea, of course, from
such a good movie.
what came out in 1999.
Yeah,
I thought it was more
really.
recent than that, but
My favorite thing about Deep Blue Sea is that it has a music video tie-in by LL
yes.
Cool J, who was in the film.
Uh-huh.
He's one of the main characters in the movie, but he did a whole song called Deepest Bluest about Deep Blue Sea, where he raps. It's like 4 minutes long, and it's full of solid, dense rhymes about him being a shark. He really gets into it. He's
He
like,
transforms into a wereshark in the video, doesn't he?
Yes, he does, and he just, you can just tell he's imagining all of the things he could do as a shark. He's so excited about it, and I'd be embarrassed how much of the lyrics I can recall from memory.
This is a great movie. It involves Thomas Jane riding hyper-intelligent sharks. As everybody who has seen it in the last 18 years knows, Samuel L. Jackson's in it basically for a cameo. He's there for like 5 minutes and then he gets eaten.
in one of the most fabulous death scenes ever.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what your... and I keep laughing because Ramsey's pulling up examples of robot shark movies that have in fact been made in the past. Maybe these are all from just the past 6 months. They're really churning them out. But yeah, in this film, he has just such a wonderful death sequence. It's just he's like here to save the day, right? And then the shark just wham jumps out.
All right, let's see
Well-
without any notes if we can recall the plot of this movie. So they're hyper-intelligent sharks. Why? They're trying to come up with a cure for Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're super smart. They figure out that they can basically trap these people here because there's like a window between when helicopters are going to land on their super secret research base.
Right.
Okay. And Samuel Jackson's leader gets eaten, and then they just kind of pick everybody off one by flooding the research station.
Well, you know, as LL Cool J says, nightmares of darkness, my appetite is heartless. Even if we related, you eliminated regardless.
But now, see, the plot elements here are kind of incidental because the main point is that you have sharks after humans inside of a human habitat that's flooded. And so, because one of the problems with shark movies in general is you're taking a person and putting them in a shark environment, and that's your film. But there's only so much you can do with that. The brilliance of Deep Blue Sea is that they take the shark-human conflict and they put it in a flooded human environment and just milk it for all it's worth.
I think, isn't there a scene where Saffron Burrows has to take her clothes off because she's going to electrocute the sharks, and she takes all of her clothes off so she can like stand on top of them because they're made of something that's insulated. It's just like the weirdest excuse for
sounds
a woman
contrived.
to get into her underwear. Yeah.
Who would have thought a shark movie with a contrived nudity scene?
Yeah.
There's a synchronized swimming in this video too.
Well, yeah, that's something though. You mentioned the nudity because that is a strong element in most shark movies. That there's this weird eroticism to this shark eating women in bikinis or men in Speedos.
So you think that goes more so to shark movies than even just to the general theme of like creature horror having?
You do
kinda
see
cheap thrills.
You do see a lot of it in creature horror, this kind of like vor fetishist thing. But there's something I think about the shark. Like the shark is just put on this pedestal. in horror films is just a thing that only eats. It is a machine for eating. It doesn't even reproduce. Who knows where it comes from? All it does is eat ladies in bikinis. And it's this weird, this weird misogynistic kind of creation to it that is repellent, but you can't help but sort of shake your head at it.
It's like a fetish. It's like this weird fetish of like watching a woman in a bikini getting eaten by a giant monster. Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I saw the shark morphing scene.
Oh my goodness!
Cool J morphs into a shark.
I forgot that this had like real, like, what was the name? Was it Buzzy Berkeley? Is that the guy who did the old synchronized swimming?
I don't know.
Motion pictures. It's like old school synchronized swimming, like legitimate old Hollywood.
That was
synchronized
actually the
swimming
Olympic
in this video.
synchronized swimming team backing up. Can you imagine how much money they spent making that video? Just the video, not the movie. That was a golden age of music videos.
Worth every
penny. We got a
penny.
question.
Let's see. Oh, AJ asks, what about Zombie, in which a zombie fights a shark? Well,
No, AJ.
You were in luck.
You're
It's
in
funny
for
you
a
asked
treat.
that.
Yeah, are we ready? Do you want to talk
Sure,
about Zombie?
yeah. Let's talk. Oh, I think it's Zombie 2.
Well, it depends. Like all these Italian horror movies, there's like 26 titles for it.
Right.
And your leading man
They're just
probably
doing
has
some
that
A/B
many as well.
testing.
Here's our Robo Shark.
All right, so Zombie 2, a.k.a. Zombie, and it's not actually a sequel to anything, came out in 1979, and this is one of the films of a true legend. I would put him up as perhaps the greatest Italian filmmaker of all time, Lucio Fulci.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Our local video store, Videodrome, has a whole section dedicated to him.
Yeah, this is a guy. A lot of people would say, within Italian horror, it's Dario Argento is the best. I disagree. It's Lucio Fulci, and he's a bit of a he's a bit of a hack a lot of the times.
He's made some really bad movies.
He has made some terrible movies, some virtually unwatchable movies.
His Conan ripoff Conquest is just awful. It's
Yes.
like Conan if you take out all the beauty and all the fun and make it like 5 times more woman-hating.
Yeah. Likewise, his film New York Ripper is just dreadfully boring. But he has had a few films that really work. One is From Beyond, which also like it rips off Suspiria, not in a real overt fashion, but like there's a scene where a blind person's dog turns on them, and the same thing happens in Suspiria. And there, you can see where the elements in From Beyond are drawn from all the other films, but yet there's something about it that really works. Some of the sequences are just legitimately creepy and terrifying. Likewise, his movie House by the Cemetery is one of my all-time favorites. Just a tremendously creepy film with a truly unique undead villain in it. But Zombie or Zombie 2, it's more of a mess.
This was marketed as an unsanctioned sequel to Dawn of the Dead, right?
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes place in a mall.
No.
It takes place everywhere, kind of. It kind of like there's scenes in Brooklyn, and then you have scenes in the ocean. This is the one where I think they're undead conquistadors at one point.
Oh, okay. That sounds right.
Yeah. So it's all over the place, and I dare you to make sense of it. But there is this legendary scene where a shark and a zombie go at it while I believe a topless diver swims by.
And so, AJ, I'm assuming you have seen this movie, and that is why you asked about it. Are we showing that scene, or are we just going to look at the poster?
I hope so.
But wait, we can't show a topless lady on Facebook.
No, I think there's a version of it without that.
Oh, okay.
It's just the zombie fight.
Okay.
So one of the crazy things is it turns the shark genre on its head by having the zombie bite the shark.
Does the shark get zombified?
One can only hope.
think so.
I mean, not in the film, but
I really feel
in
like
our dreams.
they kind of phoned it in. I mean, like, I'm coming up with a better movie here just asking you guys questions.
Well, that's the great thing about a film like this is that it's not so much about the film you see; it's the films that grow in your head after it.
Though in stuff like this where they're filming with this isn't CGI. I mean, there's obviously somebody working around with the real shark here. That makes me worried that the shark may have been harmed in filming. I don't know. I
You
mean,
think
I
he
don't wanna-
actually bit the shark?
Well, let me tell you about the diver here because there's an interesting story. So Rene Cardona Jr., who himself directed Titan. My Italian is no good here.
Tintorera.
Tintorera.
That's a terrible movie.
Well, the guy that was going to do the scene went on to direct that, and he was going to play the zombie, but he became ill, and so he was replaced by Ramon Bravo, the shark's trainer, I read.
I like that name.
Yeah, Bravo.
Ramon Bravo.
So Bravo was a Mexican swimmer, and he was actually in the Olympic Games in London in 1948 and in Helsinki in 1952. He was an accomplished diver and underwater photographer. He discovered the now famous Cave of the Sleeping Sharks, where he photographed tiger sharks sleeping on the ocean floor.
Whoa.
So he was quite accomplished.
Perfect way for us to talk about tiger sharks.
Yeah. He also did underwater filming work on the aforementioned terrible shark movie Tintorera. He also worked on The Shark Hunter, Leviathan.
Oh, wow.
Leviathan! And License to Kill.
Leviathan is one of my favorites.
License to Kill has a great shark scene in it.
Yeah.
That's where Felix gets chomped on by a shark.
Now this is
he disagreed with someone that ate him.
That's right. Yeah.
Something that ate him.
Is that the Bond film where Bond is locked in a swimming pool with sharks? There's one where there's like a covered pool.
No, that's in Thunderball.
Oh yes, okay.
This is like in the Caribbean.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen Thunderball a number of times as a kid. Thunderball, I think, is the one that has been adapted twice.
Yeah.
It was also made into Never Say Never Again.
Yes, I believe so. That
Like
was
that.
the one where Connery came back and played
Right.
the character. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess that about does it for today, but we would be totally willing to take some questions and comments if you want to leave them while we're still hanging out here. If you've been watching and you tuned in late, we are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works family. I am Joe McCormick.
I'm Christian Sager.
And I'm Robert Lamb, and we didn't even get into human-shark hybrids, but that's a whole other area of shark
We'll
movies.
have to do an episode on that in the future. Hey, so what is coming up on the podcast next week?
Oh, well, this is exciting because we have a two-parter on alien abduction.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot. I'm missing time.
And of course, obviously, we're going to have to do a trailer talk
Yeah.
on alien abduction movies.
We
There's
should,
some
yeah.
gems out there.
So y'all get into the psychological literature on alien abduction experience type things?
Yeah, psychological, and also, I mean, we take a very skeptical approach to it as well, just talking about like why the burden is on the abductees to provide the evidence, and why the evidence is just not forthcoming.
And why the 20th century was the perfect kind of cultural stew for
Yeah.
alien abduction narratives to pop up.
So what happened to alien abductions? It seems like you used to hear about them all the time. I haven't heard about a new one in years.
We talk about this in the episode, actually. It's because of changes in the media and because of the internet. So a lot of people assume there are less alien abduction cases than there used to be, but as far as the literature says, there's still quite a bit out there. It's just that it's being talked about quietly on the internet. The national news isn't covering it as much anymore.
Now, at the same time...
There's enough sensational stuff to put on the news.
Right.
At the same time, there are those that are arguing that you see less of this because everyone has a cell phone camera now.
Yeah.
And so it becomes increasingly less believable that people are having these experiences.
Yeah.
But, hey, we'll get into all this next week.
Yep.
So tune into the podcast.
Comes out on
next week
Tuesday.
If you want. Yeah, Tuesday, part 1 on Tuesday, part 2 on Thursday. Tune into that if you want to be on top of the discussion, and then join us for Trailer Talk.
Yeah, why were we talking about sharks today, by the way?
Because we did that episode.
Right.
I thought it was a trick question.
No.
Yeah, we did the episode, The Sharks of Summer, with our special guest, Amara J. Hart. That one is online now. You can listen to it wherever you listen to your podcast, or find it at stufftoblowyourmind.com.
Nathan, do we have any questions coming in? Any comments? All right. Well, if you want to leave a comment, we will try to get back into the comments later today or over the next few days and see if there's anything to address. So if you're watching this later and you do want to get in touch with us, we will do our best to respond. But otherwise, we hope you have a good weekend. And, hey, enjoy those shark movies. But remember, sharks aren't your enemy in the real world. They might be a fun monster in the movies, but sharks are cool. Let them be.
Humans are the real evil serpent.
Bye, everyone.
You learned almost too late that man is a feeling creature. And because of it, the greatest in the universe. And he learned too late for himself that men have to find their own way to make their own mistakes. There can't be any gift of perfection from outside ourselves. And when men seek such perfection, they find only death, fire, loss, disillusionment, and the end of everything that's gone forward. Men have always sought an end to toil and misery. When it can't be given, it has to be achieved. There is hope. But it has to come from inside. From man himself.